The pressure's on Auburn Tigers to take down Alabama tomorrow, and I think that is a great thing for Bruce Pearl.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Friday, it is the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend. And we'll talk about the news that came out for Auburn women's basketball, and I think that could impact just the athletic program as a whole. We'll talk about what's going to happen regardless of if Auburn wins or loses against Alabama tomorrow. But to me, Darrell, I think this Auburn basketball team loves pressure. I think they thrive off of pressure. That's why throughout the season, with the exception of the game that happened earlier this week, which I think is an anomaly with the current outside situations at play. But to me, I think this team loves pressure. That's why they play better on the road, except for against Texas A&M. And earlier this week, the pressure was off. They had won the championship. Denver wasn't playing, and it was just like, okay, whatever. At least that's what it felt like. That's how they played. And so I'm going to believe that's how they felt about it. The pressure's back now because you have an opportunity to take down your rival, sweep them, and Alabama's probably not feeling too, super confident right now with how things went against Florida. I think the pressure is back on Auburn for the final game of the regular season, and I think it's a good thing.
Man, absolutely. I mean, you are absolutely dead on, spot on. Here's why. Number one, when the stakes seem to be the highest, and when people put a lot of pressure on Auburn and start to, when it looks like there's must-win situations or bounce-back situations, Auburn has responded. Let's look at it. The airplane incident. A lot of pressure after that incident, right? You go out to Houston, you win. Playing in a tournament in Maui, 3 games in 3 days to win the Maui championship, pressure, you win. Yep. Purdue. The game after Florida, you had to go to Alabama. You had to go to Vanderbilt and to Alabama. A lot of pressure to win those 2 games.
Sure.
They did. The game Saturday in Kentucky, pressure. They won. Now, when they haven't played that particularly well, it's like playing at Duke. I mean, yeah, you want to win that game, but was there really that much pressure in that game? The pressure seemed to be all on Duke. You're playing at home. All the national pundits felt like they were going to lose that game. The game against Florida when they were playing at home didn't seem to be like a lot of pressure. And then, of course, Tuesday night, you have everything wrapped up. Absolutely. When the stakes are the highest and they have more to prove and they're a little more desperate and there's more pressure, they play better.
Yeah, I think I say it a lot, like pressure is a privilege. And I think some people thrive in it. Some organizations, some teams thrive in it, and some don't. And we've seen Auburn teams in the past that once they got the pressure, they didn't play at the same level. They played better as the hunter instead of the hunted. And to me, like, I don't know if Auburn really fell into either of those roles earlier this week. They certainly were not the hunted when they went to Duke. They were the hunter. I think they're the hunted again, because let's look at this game from Alabama's point of view. You know, they just lost a tough one to Florida, which, I mean, who hasn't lost to Florida at this point? But to me, they have the ability to, one, potentially take the top seed away from their rival, who's having a historically good season, and 2, say, hey, yeah, we are the second or third best team in the SEC, which means we're potentially the second or third or fourth best team in all of college basketball. So while I don't really feel like there was a whole lot at stake Tuesday night, I do think there's plenty at stake. Stuff that matters, it shows up in standings, and also stuff that matters within the state of Alabama as a whole.
Yes. Number one, you don't want to lose 2 in a row if you're Auburn. So there's that inherent pressure. Number 2, you definitely don't want to lose to your rival on your home floor during senior night. That's inherent. Number 3, the point you made, although a lot of people, including Dick Vitale and some others, feel like no matter what happens, that number 1 overall seed is already wrapped up.
Do you think it's true?
I don't subscribe to that theory. I know Dick Vitale is connected and he knows a lot. And I know Joe Lunardi feels the same way. But let's be honest, Lunardi is not infallible. He has gotten it wrong a lot. When the bracket comes out, a lot of times, if you lay Joe Lunardi's over the top of it, there's a lot of misses there. So
yeah, I mean, there's a website, I think it's Bracket Matrix. They rank all of them, and his is like one of the like least accurate ones.
Absolutely. So I think Auburn, to absolutely procure it and to wrap it up, they have to win Saturday.
I agree. I think Auburn should have it no matter what. I think they should have it no matter what, but I don't think they would. I think if there's any chance to give it to Duke, I think that they will. And it's ridiculous because regardless of what happens between Auburn and Alabama and Duke and North Carolina, Auburn will have a significantly better resume than Duke. I think I saw a graphic earlier today. There was like 6 teams in the SEC have more wins over ranked teams than Duke. That's insane. That's insane. When you look at Auburn's quad 1 record versus Duke's, it blows them out of the water. Duke's played more quad 4 teams than Auburn has. Like, there's just so much that goes into it where there's really not an argument for Duke over Auburn other than it's Duke. And they've got Cooper Flagg, which shouldn't matter in all of this. It's analytics. It's numbers. It shouldn't be about feelings. It should be about what you've done up to this point. And Auburn does have the best resume in college football, regardless of what they do against Alabama tomorrow.
Here's the thing. When you talk about Duke and people looking for any reason, where that door is cracked open slightly is if it's close, they are going to go to the head-to-head argument. And I get it. I'm not saying that's the be-all. You should look at the total body of work. But if Auburn never played Duke this year, let's just say they played somebody else on that particular night that was really still a good opponent, but it wasn't Duke, I think that you would have an argument that probably Auburn would still get that number 1 overall seed. The fact that Duke beat Auburn head-to-head, if it's close, is going to give them the ammunition and the excuse they need. That's why Auburn needs to win Saturday and take that right out of everybody's hands to even make that argument.
So I agree with that 100%. My counter to that is I don't think it is close. When you look at resume, I don't think it's actually close between the two.
Well, and one of the most outspoken veteran voices in college basketball history agrees with you and goes by the nickname Duke Vitale. So if Duke Vitale says Auburn deserves the number 1 seed regardless of what happens this weekend, that's pretty strong. I mean, it really is. And he is saying, no, looking at resume, it's not close. And then you look at projected teams in the tournament. Zach, do you realize the ACC is only projected to get 3 teams in the NCAA tournament? And the SEC could get 12? That's why whoever's hiring Danny Cannell needs to drug test the crap out of him, because he continually says stupider and stupider things. And Greg Sankey absolutely owned him yesterday or 2 days ago on X, and I was here for it. And it's only relevant because we're talking SEC versus ACC resume, right? Because resume matters in which conference you've played in.
It does.
All the metrics say, and all the analytics say it's Auburn, period.
Yeah. There's also another thing you said a second ago that I want to circle back to. And also let's talk about this game specifically and what Auburn needs to do to sweep Alabama. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's number 1 sportsbook. And right now, your first $5 bet, if you hit it, you can get $150 in bonus bets. You got to love that. Hey, here's one. FanDuel put this line up in the last 12 hours or so. There are now odds for Auburn to be the NCAA tournament number 1 overall seed, minus 3,500. That is FanDuel saying that Auburn will be the number 1 overall seed. So probably doesn't make sense to bet that, but if you think that they'll give it to Duke, that's where your value is when it comes to FanDuel and this line. So I feel good about that for sure. Way to go, FanDuel and the Auburn Tigers. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell, you were listing off several reasons why tomorrow's battle with Alabama is a must-win for Auburn, or would be huge to win for Auburn. And the first one you said, I believe, and you went through it pretty quickly, but I do think it's important. and you do too. That's why you said it first, I assume. But like, you don't want Auburn to go into postseason play with a 2-game losing streak when it's like took forever for you to lose that many games in the regular season. And to me, like, I agree with you. I do have a counter to that though, because this team responds so well when people talk crap about them. It's like they love it. Even when they were number one, it's like, oh, you're only winning by 12 on the road against like an SEC team. Like, what do you do? It's like, what are we doing here? Like the standard that Auburn has set is like almost too high with the way people are talking about them. Auburn fans included. Never seen anything like it. So I guess if Auburn were to lose to Alabama, there would be so much chatter about, oh, it was all a joke. It was all a facade. None of it was real. Auburn's not actually good. They're a pretender. And I actually don't think that would be awful for this team. The way this team responds to that type of chatter and discussion and attention. Now, obviously, I want them to win. It's better for this team if they win, confidence, yada, 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 sweep the state, whatever. But I did want to offer that.
Yeah, I think that is already brewing amongst that locker room right now.
Because of Tuesday.
I think
agree.
that
I agree.
That narrative and that nasty taste in their mouth and, them wanting to go ahead and get that taken care of is absolutely what's going to spur them. I think they're already feeling that. They're feeling it in the National Player of the Year voting. They're feeling it in people talking about what if Duke did this and beat North Carolina? What if they're playing on all that? So, I mean, I get your point and it's a valid one. I just don't think you want it to snowball where it becomes, well, I will say this. I don't think anything that happens is going to derail this team from a self-confidence standpoint or self-doubt. I have never said that in a very long time. I haven't said that in a very long time about any particular sports team. But I don't think Auburn's psyche, even if they lost 2 in a row, would allow itself to say, ooh, and self-doubt creep in. I don't think so. Not this bunch. Not this bunch. And so you want it to close the regular year because of the senior night and all that kind of stuff. I think that they are already using that to spur them on what happened Tuesday night.
Yeah, and senior night is always cool, but not all senior nights are created equal. And this one, I think, is elevated. One, who you're playing is obviously a big part of this. But what a senior class.
Oh, it's an historical senior class.
Yeah, Janai, Broom, one of the best. I think he's the best Auburn basketball player we've ever had. I know some folk like Charles is great too, but like I just think Janai, like he's won championships here. And then Dylan Cardwell, like the winningest Auburn Tiger now of all time. He passed Jalen. You've got Chris Moore, who like in the age of the transfer portal, like you don't hold on to guys like that, who's just kind of been a solid piece throughout several championships now at Auburn. I'm sure I'm leaving people out. Miles Kelly, who's a late addition, obviously a late, hasn't been here very long, but it certainly feels like he has up to this point. Just what a great group. What a really, really cool group. And it's cool that we get to honor them on Saturday.
And I hope, and it's nice that they get to honor them before the game and not after the game. Because I don't know, that's just a very curious decision to do that. And other schools across the SEC have done it, but I think that you want the ceremony to be an introduction or a trailer or a sneak peek to the hype of the game.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's what happened with Texas A&M, right?
Crescendo builds, the crowd gets pumped. There's good feelings and intense and exciting and appreciate it. It helps build the atmosphere.
I just don't know why you would ever do. And you're talking about Alabama did theirs.
Arkansas did it too.
I lost to Florida. Arkansas too. I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
but I mean, it reminds me of like when they did we're going to honor Coach K after the North Carolina game, and then North Carolina upset them, and they all just had to sit on that stage and like act like that didn't happen. And it's like, why would you ever do that? Why would you ever decide to do that kind of thing? It doesn't make sense.
You don't want to ever have the chance of there being an emotional letdown or kind of like a feeling of less than euphoria or excitement and that's what happens if you lose a game, and especially if you lose one that's really important. So yeah, doing it before the game helps you in the atmosphere and get the crowd going. It's a precursor. It's a teaser to get, an appetizer to get everybody going.
Yep, no question. So what does Auburn need to do tomorrow to take care of business? I'm curious to see what version of Johni Broome we see. Is he going to kind of be the dominating force that we've seen for most of the season, but maybe not the last 2 games? Does he kind of bounce back? And then do we continue to see, tremendous guard play? Auburn's guards are playing as good as they have all season, especially shooting from deep. So do we see an effective Todd Pettiford at home? Do we see Miles Kelly continuing his hot streak? Do we see a return from Denver Jones? Does Chad Baker-Mazara keep cooking? I think that's more of the storyline, not Johni Broome.
Well, this is a game where obviously, Alabama can score at will against anybody when they're on. But Auburn's been no offensive slouch either. At times, Alabama has shown the propensity to guard a little bit. And when they do that, they're very, very tough to beat. It's just that they don't do it consistently. So what I'm looking for, number one, is a healthy Denver Jones, because he helps you so much on the defensive end. And I'm looking for Auburn to just play their level of defense that keeps Alabama in the upper 70s, lower 80s. And if you do that, I think you win, and you win comfortably. That's simple.
Right.
And so, all those names you mentioned, all those guys, I think Broome will come back and play well, especially with everything that's at stake, his last home game. And
hope so.
I think, and the offense will run through him. But the guard play, you mentioned it, Jones and Pettiford and Chad Baker-Mazara and Miles Kelly. Those guys get going. It's going to be very difficult.
We talked about this after the loss. I don't think we've talked about it since then. But the player of the year situation with Johni Broome and Cooper Flagg, I made the case, and I think you agreed, that I said Johni Broome lost player of the year tonight. According to the odds, that still seems to be the case. Does that let him play more free?
Well, first of all, let's clarify our position on that, because there is a little bit of, I think, misunderstanding about that. I'm not saying, and you're not saying, that we don't think Johni Broome is not worthy of player of the year. We're not saying that we don't think he should be. We're just stating factual, real reality that this is what it looks like now.
Yeah, I think Cooper gets it. Yeah. So it feels up to me. I'm picking Johni Broome.
Exactly. I think that Johni Broome is worthy of player of the year, but I think that it's going to be given to Cooper. So I'm not saying that that's right or justified. I also need to make sure everyone understands that just because 2 weeks ago we were saying it's a slam dunk doesn't mean we're being wishy-washy about it. Things change, okay? You can lose player of the year just as easy as you can win it with performance. So I still think he is the one that should win it, but 2 weeks ago is different than right now.
That's right.
Things change because of performance. Auburn was the number 1 overall seed 3 weeks ago. Zach, would they be if they lost 3 or 4 games in a row?
No.
Okay. Things changed. You can win it, you can lose it. So I wanted to clarify that specifically. Now,
I'm glad you did. I agree with everything you said. That was very well.
There's still a window that I think can be cracked and broke through, that the national media will get on board with what we think needs to happen. And that is, if Duke and North Carolina play Saturday, and for whatever reason Cooper Flagg doesn't play great, and Johni Broome goes off with a 30-point, 15-rebound game, a lot of times people remember the last thing they saw.
Sure.
That completely, I think, then it comes to here again, right? And so it's not over yet. It's just if it was over today, if it was called today, that's what we're saying. So and that award, by the way, gets given out the first week of the NCAA tournament. So I don't know how much a conference tournament bodes into that, or
this says Sunday at noon.
Oh, okay.
That's what that's when the line is going to get paid out. I'm looking at the FanDuel odds right here.
This Sunday?
It just says Sunday at 1 Eastern.
Okay. I thought it was the first week of the tournament, that Sunday.
Could be right, and I'm just not reading this right. I don't know.
That's right. But either way, I think Saturday's a big, big indicator that it could. There's still a crack there. Still a crack.
Yeah. Sure. All right. When we let's pivot to women's basketball. John Cohen, Auburn AD, announced that there would be a change And Coach Johnny Harris has been relieved of her duties as Auburn's head women's basketball coach. What does that mean moving forward? Who should they go out and hire? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Nissan. We're all about stats because numbers don't lie. When it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers, Darrell, at an MVP level. With the ability to tow just under 9,000 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even larger memories. Wow. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Bring your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Coach Johnny Harris is out for Auburn women's basketball. I'm a little surprised by this move, just to be 100% honest. They had 1 year left on her contract.
Yeah.
It seems like she actually had some like pretty talented young players. Like, I thought they'd give her 1 more year. This actually surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, the roster's not the issue. I think she did a really good job recruiting.
Sure.
I just think that, and there were some injury issues this year with a couple of players that were supposed to be key players. The X's and O's left some, to be honest with you, left some things to be desired. Losing games late with big leads.
Yeah.
Doing things that just really absolutely were scratch your head.
No, that was definitely part of the chatter around
that's
her.
Part of it. Yeah,
how good of a coach is she actually?
How good is she with strategy, X's and O's, when to use timeouts, and that seemed to be lacking this year in particular with all the blown leads and some of the really curious decisions that were made late in games. So I think I felt like it was coming. I hate that because I think she's, a good person, did a great job, like I said, recruiting.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was time for a change. And if you watched Auburn women's basketball this year down the stretch, it was very frustrating with some of the way they closed games. And so because of that, you could kind of see the writing on the wall.
So a few early names maybe to share. There's some chatter about Sam Purcell, who's at Mississippi State now, which is where Coach Harris came from. And his name was kind of thrown around last cycle.
It was.
So we'll see. He's probably the early front runner, I would guess.
Well, there's connections there. Let's talk about him. He went to Auburn. Right. He graduated from Auburn. He also coached at Auburn. And I think he's the grandson of Joe Champy. Is that correct?
That's what I was. Yeah. I think that's right.
So those three things, and he almost, like you said, he was considered strongly last time. He's in 3 years at Mississippi State. I think he's 66-46. He's had 1 NCAA tournament appearance. He's got a losing conference record this year, but he still won 20 or something games. I don't think they're projected to get into the tournament this year, but at Auburn, we'll see what could happen. So that's one name to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I think you have to consider Chad Pruitt.
I do too. I've said that for 2 or 3 years.
Assistant coach, for men's basketball, obviously. And I mean, I know it's not the same thing, but I mean, he coached at the high school I went to. And I mean, it was just a machine, just state title after state title. And I just think as far as running a program, I think you could do it. And I also think the fan support, I think you could capitalize on the success and attention of what Bruce Pearl has built and allow that to overflow into women's basketball. And I think you would fill up Neville Arena more.
I do too. I think when Nell Fortner was here, the program got going. They won some big games. They got to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. So it's there. The fan support is there with the right coach and the right circumstance. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week. I mean, Auburn fans come out for any sport They support everything. They support softball, baseball. So women's basketball would be back into that fold if they got the right coach, started winning, showed. I mean, in this roster, whoever gets the job could flip this pretty quick if the returning roster came back and then the injuries for some key players healed up.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see exactly how quickly they want to move. I think with how quickly they moved with this, I don't know. I think they've got somebody in mind. It's kind of the impression that I have. So we'll see.
I do too. I think it'll be quick.
Yeah. You want to drop we should have done this already. You want to drop a quick score prediction for tomorrow's game?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Auburn 88-80.
Okay. I'll go a little higher. I'll go like 92-87 Auburn.
Okay. All
right. There we go. That'd be fun. I think we'd both take both of those. No question about it. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram, Darrell Dapp. Wednesdays, Fridays, I'll be going live with you tomorrow right after the Alabama game.
Yes, please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.